Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the best wildcard team for Double Gameweek 25. Over the weekend, we got some surprising FA Cup results, which has resulted in a mini update for Blank Gameweek 34. We have two confirmed fixtures for that game week: Chelsea versus Everton and Liverpool versus Tottenham Hotspur. After Double Gameweek 25, there is still a slim chance that Liverpool will have a double game week, but I'm saying it's a very slim chance here, and the most likely scenario is that Liverpool won't double again. So if you still got the triple captaincy and you haven't activated the assistant manager chip, I think Mohamed Salah in Game Week 25 might be the best triple captaincy opportunity you'll have for the remainder of the season. But Isak with a double game week later this campaign could be very enticing. The same goes for the likes of Erling Haaland potentially, or Salah in a single game week like Game Week 28 against Southampton at home. There are still going to be other opportunities, but I think Game Week 25 is the best in isolation, but there are other chips to use. Check out my chip strategy guide to see the best time to use every single one of them. And if you want me to produce an updated version after the results and in a couple of weeks' time when we have more information after future FA Cup rounds, then let me know down in the comment section below, and smash the like button of this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream. Check all the links in the description below, including my X, Instagram, Blue Sky, the Discord server, FPL League, also the FPL Challenge one is there as well, Spotify, and much more. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. I also want to provide some updates in terms of some key FPL assets, especially for that Double Game Week 24 clash tonight in the Merseyside derby between Everton and Liverpool. So Trent Alexander-Arnold did partial training on Monday, and a full decision on his involvement against Everton will be decided, or has been decided, on Tuesday, but we don't know the full extent of that yet. And by my team selection video, which I'll upload tomorrow, I'll provide definitive updates on Trent and Mykolenko. So if one of them misses out, I'll talk about the latest provided by their managers and maybe some reliable sources in terms of journalists. But with Trent, I think he'll be available for Double Game Week 25. Let's wait and see if he is involved against Everton tonight. And the same goes for another fullback, but this time on the other side of Merseyside, and that's going to be Mykolenko, who also resumed training on Monday, and it looks like he is on course to feature against Liverpool. He's got a pretty decent record against them. He's done fairly well against Salah. Let's see if that holds in this season, where Salah is just on a completely different level now. But that is big news for Everton. Mykolenko provides some stability and balance on the left-hand side. So I think both Mykolenko and Trent Alexander-Arnold should be available for Double Game Week 25. In my Transtits podcast, which I uploaded several days ago, I showed my predictions for the game week as well as other key stats in terms of analysing everything you need to know for the upcoming deadline. So I went for Brighton 1, Chelsea 1, and I haven't really changed any predictions just yet. Leicester City 0, Arsenal 2, but Kai Havertz suffered an injury scare in Dubai, and there is the potential of a hamstring problem, so he could be out for several weeks. That means Arsenal could be down to just 3 forwards, which includes Wanyeri, Raheem Sterling, Alejandro Trossard. They are in a dire situation. The fact they didn't sign anybody in January is not even just a mystery to me. It's pure negligence and incompetence from the Arsenal board, but I still back them to get a victory against Leicester City with all things considered. I have to say, though, I'm less confident going into that now than I would have been a couple of weeks ago. Aston Villa 3, Ipswich Town 1 is another penciled-in prediction. I think I'm quite assured of Aston Villa winning one game in Double Game Week 25, but I'll get on to their result against Liverpool very soon. Fulham 1, Nottingham Forest 2. I'm a bit conflicted about this one, and Fulham actually get the better of Forest historically, but in recent meetings it has been very difficult to predict. But earlier this season, Fulham went to the City Ground and got a 1-0 victory, and Nottingham Forest left it late in the FA Cup against Exeter. They actually faced 10 men and were still only able to get through on penalties, but they did the job, and Forest would be one of the favourites to win the FA Cup now. I've also gone for Manchester City 3, Newcastle 2, but this could be any sort of scoreline. It could be 3-3, maybe Newcastle sneak it. It all depends on if the likes of Gordon are available. He is currently yellow flagged at the time of this recording. Southampton 1, Bournemouth 4. I think Southampton might nick a goal, but Bournemouth have too much quality there, and I would expect them to score 3 or 4 goals in this matchup. West Ham 2, Brentford 1 in this London derby. Also Crystal Palace 1, Everton 1, Liverpool 3, Wolves 0. A standard victory is the only thing I see here for the league leaders. Tottenham Hotspur 2, Manchester United 2 is a difficult game to predict, but I think a draw might be the most likely scenario from my perspective. And Aston Villa 1, Liverpool 2. There is the possibility that Aston Villa get a draw, and that would mean table bonus for Unai Emery, but I think Liverpool will also get the job done in this double game week. Feel free to provide your predictions down the comment section below and also your thoughts for Double Gameweek 25 and beyond. And in the deadline stream, I'll show you my updated versions of these score lines based on team news. There might be a few changes there, but I'm quite settled on a lot of these predictions. Now, one new feature I wanted to show you is team weaknesses of a certain club and also heat maps of a player. So Southampton have conceded many shots and chances in central areas since Gameweek 18 when Juric was appointed their manager, and between the penalty spot and the outside of the box, they have conceded so many chances in those areas, and that happens to be where a certain player thrives from the opposing team in Double Gameweek 25, and I'm referring to none other than Justin Kluivert. This is his heat map throughout the entire season in terms of shot volume, and that is pretty much perfect. It kind of fits in with Southampton's weaknesses. That doesn't mean it's a guarantee for points, but it does kind of look very promising on paper. Now, Kluivert has a lot of touches in terms of the winger positions on the left and on the right, depending on where he starts the game, but in terms of the shots and chances, he always cuts inside and has those shots in these really central areas. So I think he could do very well against Southampton. I think a lot of us share that sentiment regardless, but I think it looks really promising for Justin Kluivert and the other players like Semenyo, but I think Kluivert might be a step above for Double Gameweek 25, and that's why he does rank quite highly in my captaincy rankings. But before I show you that, let's also delve into the clean sheet and over 2 goals probabilities. So Liverpool are top with a 50% chance of keeping a clean sheet in the first game against Wolves and 47% in the second match against Aston Villa, whilst with over 2 goals, it's 60% and 27% respectively for Liverpool. And Arsenal have great stats considering they've only got 1 game and all their injuries, especially in the front line. So in terms of a clean sheet, 78% is actually a massive, kind of figure, and we're not going to see that too often in a single game week. In terms of scoring over 2 goals, it is 48%, but you would expect that to drop after the news of Kai Havertz. If he is out, that's going to be another massive blow for Arsenal. Aston Villa are third technically, with 45% and 18% chance of keeping a clean sheet, and for over 2 goals, it's 44 and 11% respectively. Then you've got Bournemouth, Man City and Chelsea completing the top 6, and Wolves are bottom. Leicester City are actually second bottom in 19th, with the clean sheet probabilities being so low, and the same goes for scoring over 2 goals against Arsenal. So those are the stats there in terms of what DraftTown are saying for clean sheets and over 2 goals. And in terms of the captaincy, nothing has changed just yet, but let's see if the injuries and any other news plays a part in terms of changing these rankings a little bit. But Mohamed Salah is first with that double game week against Wolves and Aston Villa. On paper, I think this double looks more appealing than Double Gameweek 24, but he's already got 16 points courtesy of that Bournemouth fixture, and we'll see what he does against Everton, and anything he does here will be a bonus. Gakpo is second in this list. I think he'll do really well against Wolves at home, and that could be enough to secure a nice captaincy haul. Watkins is third, despite the yellow flag. He should be available, and Unai Emery said last week that he hopes he starts training and returns for Game Week 25. Trent, Palmer, Rodgers, Van Dijk, Kluivert, Semenyo, and Isak complete the top 10. If you believe there's a key player missing out, then let me know down the comment section below. There are many options in FPL, even in a week like this, where the focus will be on the double game weekers in Liverpool and Aston Villa. Let's delve into the best wildcard team. I hope this Gameweek Analysis provides some context in terms of my selections, but remember, the wildcard is a long-term tool. It's not just for Double Gameweek 25, but also for future blanks and doubles. My squad value overall is 104.4 million, and with spending power by removing every single player and having the amount to spend on this team, it would be 102.2 million. So a lot of you watching will have even more money at your disposal. Some of you might have even less, but I'll discuss alternatives as we go along. I'll start off with the 2 goalkeepers, and I have to say there aren't any particular standouts in this position. You might point towards Emi Martinez, but I'm not convinced about Aston Villa defensively whatsoever. Jordan Pickford is one of 2 goalkeepers to have scored over 100 FPL points at this stage of the season, and only Sells has scored more points in this particular position. I think Pickford might be the best goalkeeper from now until the end of the campaign. He'll feature in Blank Gameweek 29 and Blank Gameweek 34, and I think Pickford can run away from any fixture, even the most difficult ones, with a clean sheet. He has done it before against the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea, and at the Etihad he conceded but made a penalty save and produced a massive haul there as well. So I think Pickford is a solid choice and the best way of covering Everton defensively, although you've got plenty of options there with Branthwaite, Tarkowski. Ashley Young earlier this season was very promising. I wouldn't be investing in him now, and Mikolenko offers great value at 4.4 million should he return from injury. The backup will be simple. I think Areola provides decent value at 4.2 million, and he is the #1 goalkeeper for West Ham since Graham Potter has entered the club. So I think if Pickford gets injured, you've got that starting goalkeeper to come in at a cheap price point. I don't like investing a lot of money in this position, so you might say Pickford and Sells and problem sorted, but I'd rather spend that money in the outfield positions, and you don't want to rotate between Sells and Pickford, two of the best goalkeepers in the game. You might miss some of their hauls, which can be very frustrating, particularly in the lowest scoring position of FPL. So I've gone for Pickford and Areola. You might point towards Sells, Raya, or a few other goalkeepers, but ultimately I think Pickford is the very best. This may surprise you, but if Trent Alexander-Arnold is available for Double Gameweek 25, I still think he's a great purchase on the wildcard or with your normal transfers for Gameweek 25. You could argue he's more of a hold than a purchase at this point, but I think he's still a very good option to target that double. He's got the highest ceiling of any Liverpool defender, but if you want to play a bit safer, I think Van Dijk would be a solid choice, and Konate offers even better value if he can stay fit for the remainder of the campaign. But Trent has got the assists and bonus points potential. We all know this in abundance. It might not be to the same level as previous seasons, but still to a high enough level to be one of the highest scoring defenders in FPL. Only Aina has scored more points in this position, and I think Trent will continue to deliver if he stays fit. The same goes for Gabriel, and I think going for 2 premium defenders might be the sweet spot. I wouldn't go for 3 or 4, so I think 1 or 2 in terms of 6 million or above defenders would be the best way of structuring your team in this position. And Gabriel does face Leicester and West Ham over the next 2 game weeks, and despite Arsenal's injury rows, most of them have been in the forward positions rather than the defensive line. At least recently, it was the case early in the season where the likes of Gabriel missed the odd game here and there, but generally speaking, his injury record is fantastic, and I hope I haven't just jinxed him there, but Gabriel might be the best defender from now until the end of the season. Arsenal will feature in Blank Gameweek 29, and they could actually feature in Blank Gameweek 34 as well, as they are out of the FA Cup, just like Liverpool. So let's wait and see how things pan out over the next couple of weeks. But I am going for a Bournemouth defender here, and Kirkes might be everyone's favourite, but I would argue Howson offers better value for money. But if you've got the extra funds and want the more exciting pick, I think Kirkes is a solid choice, and from open play, it will generate more opportunities and get more goal contributions that way. But Howson is a really big threat from set pieces, just like Gabriel, and he has scored twice this season against Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur, with some massive returns as well, 14 and 15 points on those occasions, and he's actually got more bonus points than Kirkes this season, so I think Howson is a great option. Another one I like is Daniel Munoz, who is getting goal contributions every single week it seems, and he's kind of offering that 4 or 5 points baseline score, and if he couples that with a clean sheet, you can get massive returns from the Colombian wingback, so I think he's a great option. The only downside is that he will blank in Gameweek 29. There is a slim chance that Crystal Palace versus Newcastle remains in Gameweek 29, also a slim opportunity of that fixture falling into Gameweek 28, and I think the most likely scenario is that Newcastle versus Palace will fall under Double Gameweek 33, but regardless of that blank game week, I think Munoz offers great value, and you could bench him in such a week if you decide to navigate it without the free hit. And ultimately with a wildcard, it is a team-dependent tool, and it will vary on several factors like your budget, how many transfers do you have available, and your chip strategy, because some of you might be free hitting in Gameweek 29, so you can go for 2 or 3 Palace players, and I think Mateta and Munoz would be the best options that the Eagles have to offer. But let's complete this defensive line with a defender who scored the winning penalty on Tuesday night against Exeter City, and that's Nico Williams, who is only 4.3 million. He will feature in Blank Gameweek 29 with a decent fixture against Ipswich Town away, and he could rotate with your other options in this position, and Forest have been one of the best defences in the Premier League this season. Over the last couple of months, there has been a strong midfield template in FPL, and Mohamed Salah has been a major factor behind it, and with his consistency, which is unrivaled by any other player this season, it's difficult to go against him. It's very rare that I say a player is essential, but the way Salah is performing and the way Liverpool are operating right now in the Premier League, I just think you go for Mohamed Salah until the wheels fall off, and at the moment it doesn't seem like that will be the case, but Salah is just producing these massive returns on such a consistent basis, and he got a full rest in that 1-0 defeat against Plymouth Argyle. The same goes for Trent, of course, who was an injury doubt anyway, and he still is for Double Gameweek 24 and 25, but I think Salah is the best option in FPL, period. His injury record is incredible, so I'd be keeping him for the foreseeable future. You could argue that around Gameweek 30, you might want to make a switch from Salah to Haaland, or perhaps even earlier for Blank Gameweek 29 when Liverpool blank and Man City will have Brighton at home, which makes Haaland one of the most appealing captaincy options in that Blank Gameweek. But apart from that, I think Salah over Haaland is probably the way to go until the end of the season. But there is another premium option in this position who will still feature, and that's Cole Palmer. Some people are going cold on ice cold Palmer because of Chelsea's recent form, but I still think Palmer's been creating so many opportunities. It's just they aren't being converted by the other Chelsea attackers. And Palmer also got that goal against Brighton, but it was counted as of a Bruggen own goal, which I think was a bit dubious to say the least. But Palmer has a great record against Brighton. They're facing each other once again in Gameweek 25, and he scored 4 goals in the reverse fixture where he produced over 20 FPL points. But let's go to some other interesting options who is probably going to be a bit more open-minded here, because with Salah and Palmer, they're quite nailed on in this midfield. Let's go to the other options which might be a bit more open-minded and flexible. Kluivert is one of them. You might want to go for Semenyo instead, who rose in price to 5.7 million very recently, but Kluivert is on penalties, and in recent matches, he's getting 90 minutes or close to that figure, and he's also coupling that with open play threat. So I think he's a great option in this midfield. Despite going up to 5.9 million over the last couple of weeks, I still think he's worth that money, and he's making a mockery of that price tag. Now, the next option I'm not as convinced about as I was a couple of weeks ago, but Mbeumo has been consistent generally speaking, but that performance against Tottenham Hotspur was very underwhelming to say the least, so I would expect more from him, and Brentford's fixtures are still quite solid in the long term, and I'd rather go for Mbeumo than Bruno Fernandes, for example, as your mid-priced option in the midfield. The same goes for Anthony Gordon. I'd rather cover Newcastle offensively with Alexander Isak, which is probably enough at this moment in time. And in terms of Aston Villa, I think you only need one player to cover their double game week in 25, and I would go for Morgan Rogers, but it's worth noting he's on 8 yellow cards, 2 more before Game Week 32 or by the time Aston Villa have played the 32nd league game, and he will serve a 2-game suspension, which is obviously a big red flag. But if you've got Morgan Rogers, I'd keep him on the wildcard for sure, and you can sell him in the next couple of weeks potentially, especially if you've got a lot of free transfers at your disposal. You could also take a punt on Ollie Watkins in the forward line. I think that could work very well for you, and he is third in my captaincy rankings for Double Gameweek 25, so if he's available, that is a great purchase. As for Marcus Rashford, that is a 1-gameweek punt really. He had a decent cameo against Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Cup, and Marco Asensio was even more impressive in that FA Cup tie, but with their defenders, especially after Konsa got injured against Tottenham Hotspur, I would completely avoid them for now. Tyrone Mings could be available this weekend and partner Disasi in centre-half, and you've got Emi Martinez in goal, but in terms of Dean or Maatsen, there could be rotation between both matches in Game Week 25, so I'd completely avoid Aston Villa defensively and focus on one attacker in Morgan Rogers or Ollie Watkins. Despite the fact that I sold Cody Gakpo in Game Week 24 to make room for Arne Slot, I still think he's a great option for Double Gameweek 25, especially with that home game against Wolves. I was quite open to selling Gakpo because he had 2 away games in 24, and his away record hasn't been great this season, but what Gakpo would be in this wildcard team is a placeholder. You target that double for Liverpool, and of course if you wildcard you can't play any other chip in this game week, so you can't go for Arne Slot anyway, and you could sell Cody Gakpo in the coming weeks to the likes of Mateus Cunha, and if you don't go for Chris Wood, for example, you could also go in that direction as well, especially in preparation for Blank Gameweek 29. Another forward who is bang in form and has also been very encouraging is Jean-Philippe Mateta, so if you are planning to free hit in Game Week 29 anyway, you don't need to worry about having too many Crystal Palace or Newcastle players. You can go from Gakpo to Mateta in Game Week 26, or perhaps do it from the get-go in Double Gameweek 25, but I'm really backing Gakpo to do well against Wolves at home, and anything he does against Aston Villa would be a bonus. Next up though is Chris Wood, despite the fact that he's got some very tough games over the next couple of weeks, but you could maybe bench him at your peril in those particular games. I think Arsenal at home looks the most difficult because they've got a solid defence, but I think Forest would be favourites going into that game right now, and Chris Wood could score the only goal and get maximum bonus points, and against Man City, the way they're defending, you would expect a lot of chances to be created for Chris Wood. Let's see if he can finally score against them. Man City is his favourite club, by the way, if you aren't aware of that. He missed a big chance last season against them, but it's time for him to put it right and finally score against his favourite club. But Chris Wood has just been a fantastic option in FPL this season. I have to say that my best pick so far, and there is no question about it, across FPL and UCL Fantasy. But the final forward remains Alexander Isak, who blanks in Gameweek 29. The same goes for Daniel Munoz. You might want to be a bit careful about that. And the same goes for these Liverpool players and Morgan Rogers. So if you want to navigate blank Gameweek 29 without the free hit, you would have to make a few changes to the squad. For example, going for Matheus Cunha over Alexander Isak, or perhaps instead of Cody Gakpo, and also making a few other tweaks in other positions. It could be Aït-Nouri instead of Daniel Munoz, for example, but I wouldn't really recommend that in most cases. And in the midfield, you might want to skip Morgan Rogers entirely, go for another Bournemouth midfielder like Antoine Semenyo, or just target another team entirely. So there are a few things you could do, but I certainly wouldn't be selling Salah, for example, in Gameweek 25. That goes without saying, and I'd still recommend a double up in Liverpool at the very least, and my preference is having free assets, whether it's Arne Slot for those non-wildcarders, or having the likes of Trent, Gakpo, and Salah in your teams. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. You could also go for Ollie Watkins instead of Isak if you've got many free transfers at your disposal, and really target Double Gameweek 25, and then move him on to the likes of Cunha in preparation for Blank Gameweek 29. One of the best websites you can use is FPL.team, where you can visualize future game weeks and compare different transfer plans. The starting 11 includes Pickford in goal, Trent, Gabriel and Howson in the defensive line, with Salah, Rogers, Palmer and Kluivert in the midfield, then Gakpo, Chriswood and Isak up front, and the bench has Areola, Mbeumo, Munoz and Nico Williams. That is a very strong bench, and you could say that's bench boostable, and that's not something you want to do on the wildcard from the get-go, especially in this sort of scenario. And I would probably recommend using the bench boost around Gameweek 33, for example. But some of you might have a very strong bench this week, and it could be considered. It all depends on how it all lies for you. But in terms of these benching dilemmas, you might want to start Mbeumo over Chriswood, and that's something FPL.team do recommend, actually. The expected points does rise from 87.5 to 89.3. Then you've got Munoz versus Howson as another potential change you could make. And the expected points also increases to 90.1 this time. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But irrespective of what you do, you'll probably get a lot of bench points this way. And ignore David Moyes, by the way, because I've got the assistant manager chip active for this free game week period. And basically by removing him, you have 0.5 million with this squad and my team value. Some of you watching might have even more at your disposal, so you could easily afford a few upgrades. Maybe Howson to Kirkes is one you would consider, or a few other changes here and there. If you're not happy with having too many blank Gameweek 29 blankers, then you could do something like this. Get some Wolves players like Cunha and Aït-Nouri, bench them this week against Liverpool, and I think you'll be much happier with your bench points this week with this sort of structure. But look at the amount of money in the bank after making these sort of moves. 4.8. You can make some massive upgrades in certain positions, and also you have a lot of transfers potentially available and the money to fund other moves for blank Gameweek 29 and future double game weeks like 33, for example. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about this, and basically I've sold Isak in this sort of scenario, and you could take a punt on Ollie Watkins instead. I think that could really work for you in double Gameweek 25, but it's all about finding that balance. We still have a lot of game weeks left until Gameweek 29, albeit not too many, but still a handful amount in order to save up transfers and be able to navigate it without the use of the free hit, because essentially only 4 teams will blank in Gameweek 29, and there's the possibility that Crystal Palace and Newcastle will stay in Gameweek 29 if both teams crash out and don't reach the FA Cup quarterfinals. So all of that will be covered in future videos. What would you do with the 4.8 million at your disposal with this particular squad? And by the way, it does increase to 5.3 million in my case by removing David Moyes as well, because you can't use the assistant manager chip and also activate the wild card. So something like, let's say, Ollie Watkins for Cunha could work, but remember, he would blank in Gameweek 29 anyway, so that could be a bit counterproductive. But it's just something worth noting. I have discussed players that could help you navigate blank Gameweek 29. Erling Haaland would be another one, but albeit he is very expensive as well, and it might require selling Salah, and that's why many FPL managers will use the free hit in blank Gameweek 29, but you could also use it in double Gameweek 33 in a more aggressive manner, or perhaps in blank Gameweek 34, but it does seem like that blank Gameweek in particular will be easier to navigate than initially expected because of those FA Cup results over the weekend. But if you aren't too fussed about blank Gameweek 29, you could go for Ollie Watkins instead of Isak, or perhaps Cunha, and just focus on double Gameweek 25 and go for 2 Aston Villa players this way, and have 5 double Gameweek players overall with Gakpo, Salah and also Watkins, Rogers, and Trent if you want to do something like that as well. And you've got a lot of money left in the bank. In my case, it'd be 3.2 million with this alternative squad, which you could also use to do Munoz, to Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, and just forget about Blank Gameweek 29 entirely. So there's so many different ways you can go about this in FPL this season, and ultimately it's about your chip strategies, the amount of transfers you have at your disposal, and many other factors. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. How would you build a wildcard team to navigate Blank Gameweek 29 without the free hit? And are you planning to use the free hit in 29, 33, or 34? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. I promise to get this to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 32,000 subscribers. Follow me on X, Instagram, and also Blue Sky is still an RCM or FPL Dylan. There's also my Discord server, the FPL League, Spotify, and also my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. I wish you all the best of luck for Double Gameweek 25 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you very soon on Friday for that deadline stream.